You're thinking of learning a language, you should learn Interslav. And the reason I say this is because by learning Interslav, you by extension basically learn 13 other languages. This is because Interslav was created as almost a in-between language, which kind of mixes the words from 13 languages all into one language that they could all sort of understand. Basically, the point of Interslav is a Bulgarian can't understand a Serbian that well, and a Russian can't understand a Slovakian that well. But through Interslav, they can sort of understand each other. It's basically like if there was a language that was in between German and English. So you can't understand a German if you speak English, but if there was a language which mixed the words of German and English, you would sort of understand the German, and the German would sort of understand that language. So that's how Interslav works. Now, if you can already speak a Slavic language, such as Russian, which I do teach on this channel, it's a lot easier to learn Interslav since, again, it's very similar. But if you're an English speaker, it'll be just as hard as any other language, which is why if you're gonna learn any language, you should learn Interslav. So yeah, as you can see, the language is pretty effective. I have a sort of almost criteria of if this language is for you. So the first question is, will you be staying in one Slavic country for more than a couple months? Now, if you answered yes, then I recommend learning the local language, just because you don't want to sound like a drunk man all the time. Literally, the comments of these Interslav videos are just, this sounds like my drunk uncle. So, yeah, that shows the quality of conversation of Interslav. Like, you'll understand people, but of course you can't be perfect with it. Now, secondly is, will you be having conversations with important people? Because you don't want to sound stupid, again. And lastly is, will you be traveling a lot? Because if you stay in one country per week, then Interslav is literally perfect. Like, this is what it was designed for. And what's interesting is that this language was created only, I think, 20 years ago. It was just created by a bunch of, I think, college students and professors to create this language. Because all Slavic countries are so similar, because they're all one people, or at least they used to be. They still really are. It's like, you know. So they all share a similar language, because all Slavic countries, from Ukrainian to Macedonian, they all come from one root language, which is Old Slavic. So, anyway, a professor noticed that all of these languages were very similar. Now, it wasn't just him that noticed it. Anyone can notice it. If you know Russian and you hear some Polish person speak, you'll understand like half the words. So he saw that, and then he decided to make a language that everyone could understand. And since then, I think around 20,000 people have learnt the language. So it's very interesting. For a language, which is, I think, the second most important language in the world, because Chinese, like, they'll say, oh, Chinese is important, Spanish is important, but, like, when will you ever use Spanish? When you go to Mexico? Like, you don't do any business in Mexico, you just have fun, and the hotel staff speak English anyway. So, Interslav is the best, because road trips are the best in Eastern Europe, because it's cheap, and it's just, you know, it's fun. You fucking have your car towed and fixed by some Bosnian dads when it breaks down on the side of the road. It's just very useful. So Interslav is the best. If you speak Interslav to the average person, they'll just think that you are speaking some other Slavic language. Basically, to give you an example of how Interslavic sounds to, for example, a Russian, you know, any Slavic, just X language. It sounds like you are saying some words correctly and saying some wrong. So it's like, here's an example. If you wanted to do tak, then do potom. Like you see, it'll just sound like all the words have an accent, and then some words will just sound like completely unrecognizable. But with those unrecognizable words, you just kind of fill it in. So if it's like, do you like my apple, liquid, then you would just assume that that was juice. So that's basically how it works. So, lastly, I do speak Russian, so if you want to test out how well Interslav works, you can go to a translator and go to over here, where it's Interslavic to English. And then you can just put, like, for example, thank you, which is благодаря, which I'll tell you what that actually means. In Russian, this means thanks to. So again, it's very similar. When you say thank you in Interslavic to a Russian speaker, it'll be thanks to. But to a Macedonian, for example, it'll probably be something else, like thanks for. So anyway, you can input some phrase, and then you can write it in the comments, and I'll reply in English what I think you've said, and the answer to whatever question you have. Now, if you are interested in these types of videos, I will be making them mostly on Russian, since that is what I specialize in. I am a Russian speaker. So if you're interested in learning any Russian, or just binging some, Russian videos just for fun, then yeah, check out my channel, comment some stuff. Definitely not just to boost engagement. Yeah, anyway. See you guys.